Welcome back to the class, everyone. Here, very quickly, we have an immensely powerful character coming to Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Not only were they a great warrior at their time, they were also a Sith who ultimately helped Palpatine in his rise to not only be able to take down the Jedi, but in addition to that, take over control of the Galactic Republic, soon to be Empire. And since that character isn't really coming to the game for a couple of weeks, we should probably spend a few minutes on Bane. So yes, this is going to be our overall Darth Bane review, but we're going to go in and talk about what Omicrons he probably needs, what order you should put his Zetas on, how you want to mod him, and even what team comps we might want to be exploring. So without further ado, let's get into the Omicrons. And today we do have our lovely infographic back to assist us, and this time we have outlines on the text so that you can actually read them, which is quite the improvement if you ask me. So again, first off, we need to talk about his Omicrons. How many does he need and how good are they? And I'll just go and say this right in this before we start. I think he's going to need 2, and that is going to be the unique right here, as well as the special essence of dominance. And the reason why is because these two are going to pair very well together in what they do. If you only have one to give, and that's just your limit for whatever reason, the answer is going to be the rule of 2. And the reason why is when we scroll down to the very bottom of the Omicron portion, it is going to give him a bonus turn to go right off the rip. The reason why this matters is because whether you have the second Omicron or not, you have the ability to increase the enemy's cooldowns by 1 without the Omicron here at the very beginning of the battle, meaning the enemy team has to start with their hands tied behind their back, and there's nothing they can really do about it, because despite some of Bane's kit being nerfed against Galactic Legend, that part isn't. The cooldown is universal. Everyone's going to get hit by it, and some counters are going to care a lot more about this than others, and we'll ultimately only see that once we get actual testing. But for the most part, getting that bonus turn right off the beginning is going to leverage the other ability and make it even that much more important. In addition to that, the 75% mastery max health and protection is also really important, and the reason why is when we're going to be using this in a duo team with C, which I believe is going to be the best comp, is not going to be the only comp, Darth Bane is essentially going to be the tank for the team, whether he likes it or not, because we can't bring in additional Sith, or otherwise we start sacrificing parts of this kit. In addition to that, C is always going to be hiding in the shadows as he does, while Bane takes the brunt of things. So we need to be as tanky as possible, not just to be able to tank the little hits over time, but we need to have enough health, protection, overall survivability to tank really big hits like Rey's Whirlwinds, assuming that this counter, or that everything in Bane's kit is going to allow that counter, which I really think it is, especially when we look at some of the recovering and healing immunity that we have. That's a lot of immunity. So overall, rule of 2 for me is number 1. We've already alluded to it, but essence of dominance has got to be an easy number 2. And the reason why is because when we can keep increasing our opponent's cooldowns, keep taking turns, keep reducing all their turn meter, they just can't really do anything. And this buys more than enough time for C to not only get off his link, but even maybe get to his ultimate and zap 2 characters off before the enemy team can really get going. In addition to that, this is going to help one of C's previous weaknesses, where there's a few units out there, mainly Galactic Legends, that he can't use his big zap with, and being able to reduce that character's defense by 20% over and over and over again is going to be really helpful. I don't know if anybody's ever been in the situation where they've used C versus Jabba, but C literally just can't kill Jabba. He can never get him down. Maybe Jabba with 100% less defense will be a little bit easier to kill, not to mention all the other damage that Darth Bane is going to be bringing to the group. So that definitely comes in number 2. Number 3, I don't like this Omicron. Maybe it'll be important. Maybe there's something huge I'm missing as far as numbers go, but we don't need the additional 3% ultimate charge against, or gained against deceived or linked enemies. Bane already has 2 other different ways to increase C's ultimate, and C's ultimate kind of came remotely quickly before. The only instance where I'm really close to getting it and then I get killed off is against JMK. And the fact that, again, we're already gaining double ultimate from other abilities, I don't really think this is going to ultimately mean a whole lot, just because Bane is already going to be helping in a lot of other ways. The additional 5 stacks of Siphon, also don't really think that is important. Bane has several ways to increase his overall max health and survivability, so having more Siphon to be able to gain more max health just doesn't overall seem all that important. So Definitely the unique first because of the bonus turn and overall survivability. This special seems to be very good, although it might be a little bit of a hindrance against SLKR, but I don't know how much we actually care about that matchup, given SLKR is almost never placed on defense, and even if he is, this still probably isn't enough to completely ruin you against him. And then in last place is going to be Malevolent Whirlwind. Now, for those of you who are unlocking Bane and are short on Zetas, I realize that it's probably a small Venn diagram group, but the order that we're going to want to do it is definitely the unique. Even if you hate GAC, even if you don't want the Omicron at all, I'm not even going to explain this. 350% defense, like that alone would do it. I don't care. That's the Zeta. All the other stuff, I guess, it's all so good. Like, there's no competition when we look at what the other Zetas do. The next best Zeta is going to be on as basic. It adds some extra damage, whether with critical hits or just adding raw damage. Pretty nice overall. Not going to be super influential for how his kit works. And last spot is his leadership. And this isn't just because I don't think you should be using his leadership. That is partially true depending on what your account is at. But also because this just doesn't do much. I mean, C beats plenty of dark side teams. I guess you wouldn't be using C in this scenario, but I don't really think the magical counter to Darth Bane on defense with Scrap Sith, which is another team we're going to talk about, is going to be Jedi. And then even then is, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal to have 10 less or 20 less speed overall. It just doesn't seem really that good. I guess it's probably a little bit more important than the basic if you're using his leadership, but both of them seem to be very underwhelming overall. So again, for Zetas, unique is key. Basic is underwhelming, but just get it. And then leadership, fine, whatever. If you're using his leadership, that's, I guess, acceptable. So now that we've kind of covered where his Omicrons and Zetas need to be, let's go ahead and jump into mods. And I can already tell you, I'm probably going to have a different opinion than the majority when it comes to modding Bane. And that is because I am pushing, for lack of a better term, a speed set. And I might totally be wrong in this. And just for context, the main modding that the majority of people are recommending right now is just health, 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 health. And I get it. Survivability is very likely going to be important for reasons that we've already discussed in matchups with both JMK and Ray, which I think are probably going to be some of the counters that are going to matter. Not only that, but he also is immune to max health damage. So overall, you're not really giving him any hindrance by modding him for more health than, say, protection or some other stat that he might need. Now, I do think regardless of how you're modding him, whether you're doing it the Calvin method or the everyone else method, you do want health primaries on the circle, the cross, as well as the triangle. The reason why I myself am pushing for a speed set, and in addition to that, a speed arrow, is because I want this guy to take as many turns as possible, primarily for the cooldown increase. If I'm putting the second Omicron on him and I'm going to be increasing their cooldowns by 2 every single time that I get to use that special, in addition to that gaining turn meter, reducing their turn meter, what I'm going for, and it won't be identical, but what I am trying to do here is create a very similar effect to what we have already seen with Afra's current Datacron that she's had before, where she just takes turn after turn after turn after turn, doing a very similar mechanic where she goes out and she uses her rogue archaeology and she increases all of her enemies' cooldowns by 1. Again, we're not going to be able to do it the same way that Afra does it because she gets 5 turns every single time the enemy gets 1 turn, but Bane can at least have a little bit of stacking speed so he can maybe catch up a little bit, and then he's also increasing cooldowns by 2, so he might have a better shot at it. So that's really what we're going for when we're talking about overall speed. I don't think defense is going to be that big of an overall viability. I realize the temptation is there because, again, Bane is essentially needing to function as the tank on the team. But when we look at a lot of those higher level matchups, almost regardless of what they are, whether they're Jedi Master Luke, JMK, Lord Vader, every single one of those teams has a way to just completely ignore defense or slowly chip away at it. We have armor shreds, we have true damage, we have defense penetration, there's a just ignoring armor on certain hits. There's a lot of ways ultimately around it. So really what you want to do is speed or health, some type of combo of the two. If you do go for the full health set, health primary method, you're probably fine. Just try to get some really good speed secondaries to, again, be able to try to increase the enemy's cooldowns as much as possible, pretty much consistently throughout the entirety of the battle. So mods are fairly simple. I don't think there's going to be much controversy on them outside of my speed set. Now let's talk a little bit about comps. Comps are not going to vary as much, I don't think. There's going to be 2 major schools of thought, and then we'll talk about some sleeper builds. The 2 major ways that are going to be to do this, and this is the route that I am going to be taking. I understand the other route, but I think this is going to be more valuable for my roster overall, is to just make the 2 super teams. And the 2 super teams are going to be using Trench with all the characters that he's wanted to play with for forever, that he's not been able to because better teams were always stealing it away. That might not be permanent, that might just be a side effect of the Doubtcron, but it's a team that I'm going to want to be pushing. And then I'm just going to take the C Bane duo and run with it. I've gotten a lot of questions about Lord Vader and Bane. I don't think that is going to work out very well, purely because Lord Vader's kit was specifically made to synergize with Empire and Unaligned Force user allies. He's going to take Darth Bane's master away and not even give it back like he would to his own. The Dispo overall isn't that important for what he wants to do, and a lot of the natural counters that are being used to beat C or C can't beat anymore. Bane is coming as a solution to those, and ultimately Lord Vader has plenty of help right now with the amount of unaligned force users in Empire that have come in. So this is going to be the overall superior build. And then again, giving Watt to Trench, or even if you still hate Trench, give him to SLKR. Watt still loves to go in a lot of different homes. And he will miss Sith Eternal, but he will be just fine. The other school of thought is to use Darth Bane with, for lack of a better term, meat shields, aka high relic Sith that you had to level up because whatever Galactic Legend told you had to, and then keep using C with Watt. And the reason why I don't hate this overall is because C with Watt still beats a ton of relevant stuff for me. I use it every single round, whether it be against Malgus, Malicos, or against some funny JML team that people are putting on defense because they think it might hold, when reality Sith Eternal will still completely eat it up. So it's really not a non-functional team. He's always had a place offensively, especially when you take into consideration how good of banners were, although that really isn't affected by Darth Bane at all, because he should be probably getting better banners assuming he doesn't die. The reason why I'm saying you're probably going to have to do these both separately is because if we look at the Darth Bane team up top, the only reason that you probably have these 4 characters at high relics, ignoring Lord Vader, is because you specifically had to take them up to unlock Sith Eternal Emperor. If you didn't take up Sith Eternal Emperor, I guess you could probably have these from like Lord Vader, and I think Darth Maul is required for Leviathan as well. So there probably is an odd roster out there where you can still build this team, and therefore go and do it, that's fine. But overall, I think most of the people that have high relic Sith laying around is because they specifically built Sith Eternal. So for the people who are going to be able to use this are people who are going to be low on overall teams. You probably don't have all 8 Galactic Legends unlocked. You probably don't have all Conquest characters. You probably don't have all the other legendaries that refuse to come back, Cal Kestis. And you need more teams, you need more good teams. This is probably going to be a viable option. I'm really curious to see how this would do on defense. And lastly, what we want to talk about as far as overall comps go is, I think now maybe more than ever, we are going to see some sleeper builds. And I think we're going to see some sleeper builds that a lot of people are not going to discover for a long time, just because the way that Sith are currently built out, you've got Trey with Savage, you've got Darth Malgus with all the Sith Empire, you've got, let's say you're doing the Bane and C thing, you have everyone already beating really high caliber teams. You're not going to be tempted to try some weird things out, but I think there's a lot of people out there that don't have the Savage Omicron, or maybe they don't have Trey built up, or they don't have her Omicron, or they don't have Malgus unlocked. There's going to be a lot of fun things that I think people are going to discover in certain matchups using Darth Bane under, say, a Savage lead, just the 2 of them, and watching all those bonuses kick in, maybe under a Trey lead, maybe throw him in under a Darth Malgus lead as a 5th. I think he's going to be relevant on quite a few of those matches. Maybe not entirely game-changing, but specifically on offense, I think we're going to see him open up counters that the Sith may have not been used to, or may have not been used to without having to use the characters they were using. Maybe you can use, for example, Malgus with Junk and Darth Bane, rather than having to use all the good characters like Malak, Darth Revan, Bastila Shan Fallen. As far as overall relic level goes for Darth Bane, I do believe he's going to need high relics, unfortunately, aka 7 or 8. And the reason why, and we've already kind of talked about it, he's going to need to be the tank for the Sith Eternal team, assuming that's where he's getting used. And the reason for that, again, we've already kind of explained it all. So he needs to have really high survivability that comes from relics. In addition to that, the amount of mastery that he's gaining in here as well, that just becomes so much more valuable when he's sitting at a high relic marker. I will only be taking him up to 7 rather than 8, purely because I need to save all my relic materials now for the previously mentioned Jar Jar Binks, who's kind of the most important character in the entire game for me. But that probably isn't the case for most, so you're probably safe taking him all the way up to R8 and enjoying your Sith Lord. So that is going to be the end of today's video. If you want to use the infographic, I'll try to get that in the description below so you can go and share it in your guild for all those people who aren't super keen on watching YouTube videos. But until the next time, thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.